Hey everyone, it's Matt here with Nightrun Studio, and there's just something wonderful about a well-crafted world that you can get immersed in. However, sometimes they can feel just a little still and lifeless. So in this video, we're going to add animated tile sets, making a world that is alive with waves and foaming rocks and trees that sway in the breeze and... Isn't that nice? Alright, I guess we should get started. So let's just start by adding some water to this scene. I've maintained the usual elevation base layers with collision and non-collision like I did in the earlier videos. And at the moment, our lowest layer is set on order in layer 0. So here we're just going to add a 2D sprite square. We'll just stretch this out so that it covers our entire map. And then we just need to give it a little bit of color. And actually the water for tiny swords, if you're using this pack, is the exact same color as the plumage on our knight's hat. So we can just use the color dropper tool to get a hold of that. And now we've got some water. I'm just gonna drag that water up under elevation base here so that it's in with all of our other tile set stuff. And at this point, we'll start by adding an animated rock with foam around it. You'll notice that I've set my sprite mode to multiple. My pixels per unit in my project are 64 throughout. I've also gone with a point no filter and set my format to 32-bit, which just prevents any discoloration. At this point, we can go to the sprite editor, and here we're just gonna slice things up by cell size and go ahead and use that 64 by 64. You can click slice and go ahead and apply that. Now that we've sliced that up, you can hit the play button to see all of the different sprites involved. And unfortunately, this is a little bit of work, but I'll walk you right through it all. We can right click here, go to create, and then under 2D, we can go to tiles and select animated tiles. This will generate a file, but unfortunately, since there's 4 tiles per rock, we're gonna need to make 4 of these. I'll duplicate that in just a minute, but for now, let's rename this to rock1_1. Now each of these rocks have 8 animations, so we're gonna actually set this to have 8 for the number of animated, and then we're just gonna grab that top left rock from each of them and drag them into these slots. Once we've done that, you can set your speed. Higher numbers move faster, and I personally like a speed of about 5. You can randomize this by picking different minimum and max, though I kind of like all of my waves to move in unison, so I'm just going to go with 5. We don't need to add any collider here, but if you wanted to, you could add a grid-shaped one, so a square, or one that maps to the specific shape of the sprite. Now that we've got one of these, I'm just going to duplicate and make 3 more. We'll have rock1_1, 2, 3, and 4. Now to prevent any misclicks, I'm gonna go to rock1_2 and just lock my inspector. We can then drag in all 8 of the animations. We don't need to change anything down below as we already have that set up from our copy paste. So we can just move right on to rock1_3 and then finally do rock1_4. All right, once all 4 of those are done, we can head on over to our tile palette here, and we're just gonna create a new palette, which I'll call animated tiles. At this point, we can just shift click all 4 of those, drag them on over here, and we're ready to start placing those rocks. We'll create a new tile map here. I'm gonna call this one rocks. And we'll keep in mind that there are many different types of rocks, so we can mix this up a bit. However, at the moment, I'm just gonna make the one, and so I'm gonna just toss them all over the place. With that done, we can hit play, move on down, and it looks like our rocks are animating quite nicely. Now you don't need to rewatch this process for everything, however I'll just make a couple of notes. Let's click on our foam here, which I've used the same settings for. And in this case, when I go to slice this one by cell size, again 64 by 64, you'll notice it creates 5 slices for each of these. However, if you zoom in, you'll notice that a couple of them have 1 pixel in the corners, and so they get an extra slice. Now this is up to you. I've personally chosen to just omit that pixel as I think it's kind of silly. That said, if you really want to retain fidelity to the image, you could slice it 9 ways by using keep empty rects, which will slice the entire thing up, and now you'll have 9 slices per wave. I also just want to make a note about the trees that we've got. Similar to the foam, you'll notice when we go into the trees that slicing them, generally speaking, creates 7 slices. Except for this one tree here that has a little bit of extra because of the way that it's blowing off to the side. You can choose to omit that, that's what I did. However, if you want to retain that fidelity, go ahead and make 9 slices per tree. Additionally, these bottom 2 trees here are actually meant to be used for when you're chopping down the tree. And you don't actually have to include them when you're animating. You'll just want to save those for if you're doing tree chopping at some point. For my own tree, I ended up using 5 slices. You'll notice here that I have slice 0 through 3, and then I just repeated 0 to keep a nice loop. That said, I really actually don't need to do this, and I'd recommend not doing it as it causes my trees to catch a little bit on the final frame, and if I just kept the original 4 frames, it would look much nicer. I've set these at the same speed as the waves, and I actually wouldn't bother with any collider type here as we're gonna be putting these on a tile map that actually has collision built in. Now in my case, I've just added a little labeling here, so the collision low is where I'm putting the stumps. They're just on a collision layer so the player will bump into the tree if he hits the stump. That said, I've done the rest of the tree on the non-collision high. That way it appears in front of the player can run behind it, but it won't actually block him as he's moving around. With that done, you can head on into the game and you can add some nice waves, some foamy rocks, trees swaying in the breeze. You can just enjoy it for a moment. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have, it might be nice to subscribe, click like, or just write me a comment telling you that you enjoyed the video. Until next time, this is Matt with Nightrun Studio. Cheers.